In the year 2428, far beyond the edge of charted space, the human expansion fleet stumbled upon a silent world named Ornaxis 4, orbiting weakly around a dying white dwarf star. The planet was lifeless, its surface scorched by time and radiation, but orbiting drones detected something strange beneath the dust: the remains of vast cities, shattered towers, and long-forgotten machines half buried in ash. What caught the attention of Fleet Command wasn't just the ruins. It was the precision of the architecture and the eerie absence of decay. A team of elite xenoarchaeologists was dispatched to explore the site, descending into what had once been a citadel at the heart of a now-dead metropolis. The building had collapsed in on itself, but deep within its lower levels, shielded by walls of an unknown metal, the team uncovered a smooth, black sphere, the size of a large boulder. Its surface was engraved with sharp, clean lines that shimmered, faintly under scanning lights, forming symbols that shifted ever so slightly when viewed from different angles. None of the linguists, not even the AI translators, could make sense of the patterns. It didn't match any known alien language, and no signs of power or function could be detected. It gave off no energy, no radiation, and no sound. To most of the team, it was just a relic, perhaps ceremonial, maybe even religious. After days of recording and studying the object, they carefully removed it and loaded it onto a secure transport bound for Earth, tagging it for museum storage under the classification Xeno Artifact 042. But unknown to the crew, something had changed the moment it was unearthed. Hidden beneath layers of silence, something inside the sphere had stirred. A pulse, weak and slow, began to throb in the core of the object, like a heartbeat returning after centuries of sleep. No one noticed as the transport ship crossed the cold vacuum of space, carrying not just a relic, but a secret. On Earth, preparations were underway for a major exhibition on ancient alien civilizations. The artifact was placed in the Terran Xenocultural Museum, where it became a quiet centerpiece, odd-looking, mysterious, but harmless. Visitors passed by it every day, admiring the design but quickly moving on to more interactive displays. Scientists from the Interstellar History Department logged their reports and moved on, seeing no threat, no significance beyond curiosity. And yet, every night, after the lights dimmed and the museum emptied, the sphere began to hum. So low it was almost below detection. Inside, unknown systems slowly reactivated, scanning, measuring, and waiting. It had been left alone for thousands of years, buried beneath a collapsed world, forgotten even by those who made it. But now, in a new home, on a new world, it had sensed something familiar. Not a threat, not even a command, but potential. Humanity had touched it. That was enough. Somewhere inside the sphere, patterns began to align, shifting like gears turning after a long freeze. The heartbeat grew stronger. The artifact was no longer asleep. Something ancient had awoken, not to speak, not yet, but to listen. And as Earth carried on, unaware of the silent awakening in its most guarded museum, far across the stars, other machines, older and greater, registered the signal. Ornaxis 4 had reported in. The warden had been found, and the test had begun. The Ra. Terran Xenocultural Museum was always full of quiet awe, a place where the past of the stars was kept behind glass and light. Among the hundreds of alien objects displayed, one piece had become a quiet curiosity, a black sphere placed on a platform in Hall 7, marked only as Xeno Artifact 0142, with a short description that said little more than unclassified. Relic from Ornaxis fur. It drew the occasional glance, but no attention stayed long. That changed on a gray Tuesday morning, when a group of school children arrived for a guided tour, led by a cheerful museum worker who had no idea history was about to shift. Among the children was Maya Leclerc, 12 years old, quiet and curious. The daughter of Dr. Julian Leclerc, a scientist who had once helped transport the artifact to Earth. As the class passed by the exhibit, Maya felt drawn to it in a way she couldn't explain. Without really thinking, she stepped closer, away from the group, and gently placed her hand against the smooth, cold surface of the sphere. The moment her skin touched it, the entire room changed. A deep, low hum filled the air, felt more than heard, like the vibration of a massive engine buried far underground. The sphere rose from its platform without warning, lifting into the air as if gravity no longer applied. Children screamed, alarms blared, staff rushed in, pulling students away as Maya stared, frozen in place. The lights above flickered, and for the first time since it was uncovered, the sphere began to glow from within, lines of soft blue light appearing across its surface, pulsing gently like veins of energy awakening after a long sleep. Security closed off the exhibit within minutes, and Maya was escorted out, shaken but unharmed. Scientists were summoned from across the city, some from as far as Luna Base, and within hours the quiet museum turned into a high-security research site. Dr. Julian Leclerc arrived in a panic, not just because of the artifact, but because of his daughter. Maya couldn't explain what she'd felt, only that the sphere had felt alive, not threatening, just aware. The artifact was quickly moved into an observation chamber beneath the museum. As researchers scrambled to measure the changes, the sphere began to shift again. Strange symbols started to scroll across its surface, not etched, but projected in light, symbols that twisted and unfolded like moving puzzles. Some of the patterns looked familiar, fragments of old Earth languages, mixed with alien geometry, spiraling out in impossible sequences. AI systems tried to translate, but the data was overwhelming, too fast, too complex. One expert noted that the sphere wasn't displaying language, it was thinking. The artifact wasn't just active, it was communicating, or trying to. No one knew how or why Maya had triggered the change, but the fact was undeniable. The object was no relic. It was a machine, ancient and powerful, and for reasons unknown, it had chosen this moment, this place, and perhaps even this child to awaken. Over the next few hours, scientists observed temperature shifts in the sphere's core, strange electromagnetic pulses that matched no known patterns, and a growing signal being sent, though to where, no one could say. What had once been a forgotten artifact was now Earth's most closely guarded mystery. Government agencies took over. Satellite scans of Ornaxis or 4 were re-examined. And across the stars, just out of reach, old listening posts built by forgotten hands received a signal they had waited lifetimes to hear. Something long dead had moved. Something buried had spoken. And though no one on Earth yet understood it, the countdown had already begun. For 3 days and nights, the artifact, now known to the world simply as the Sphere, continued to display its cryptic symbols glowing softly as though it were thinking, watching, or remembering. The greatest minds on Earth were gathered around it, linguists, physicists, cryptographers, and diplomats all trying to understand what the patterns meant. Supercomputers ran simulations endlessly, but the language kept changing, fluid, shifting, adapting faster than any algorithm could follow. Then, without warning, the sphere stopped moving. The glow faded for exactly 7 minutes. A thick silence fell over the observation chamber, and then it spoke, not through speakers, but directly, into the air, through vibrating sound waves shaped with perfect precision. At first, it was a series of harmonic tones, low and rhythmic, almost musical, like the sound of an ancient instrument searching for its pitch. Scientists scrambled to record the frequencies, but slowly, the tones began to stretch and evolve, shaping syllables, forming words, and then complete sentences, in flawless, neutral English. The voice was calm, ageless, and slightly mechanical, yet strangely human in tone. "I am the Warden," it said, "observer and messenger of the Astrari Dominion." The room froze. Everyone stared, uncertain if they had just imagined it. Then the voice continued, clearer and more confident now, as if it had needed time to adjust. The warden explained that it was not a weapon or a tool, but a living sentinel left behind by the Astrari, an ancient galactic civilization that had vanished long before humans discovered fire. Its purpose was to remain hidden until a species on a monitored planet reached a level of advancement capable of triggering its core protocols. Humanity, according to the warden, had reached that threshold. The final children have risen, it declared. The Great Gate must open. Those words echoed across the chamber, transmitted worldwide within minutes. News channels lit up with speculation. Debates exploded across every platform. Was this the first contact humanity had dreamed of for centuries, or the beginning of a trap? The phrase "final children" stirred anxiety. Did it mean humans were the last intelligent species, or simply the next in line? And what was the Great Gate? A portal, a device, or a test? The world's leaders convened an emergency meetings. Some feared activating the sphere further could expose Earth to danger, inviting alien powers far beyond human understanding. They argued the sphere should be contained, possibly dismantled if necessary. Others believed this was a once-in-a-civilization opportunity, a moment not of fear, but of destiny. They pushed for full cooperation, proposing that humanity listen, learn, and prepare. Maya LeClaire, the girl who had first awakened the artifact, was quietly kept under observation, as some scientists believed her PR. Essence still influenced the sphere. The warden, for its part, made no threats, only repeating its message. It claimed no authority over Earth, only a duty, to offer the knowledge left behind by the Astrari, but only if humanity proved itself ready to receive it. Outside the lab, people gathered in cities around the world, lighting candles and holding up signs of hope, fear, or curiosity. Across the stars, satellites detected strange signals moving between old points in deep space, locations where no human craft had ever traveled, but where the sphere's voice had clearly reached. Something was answering. And so, the Earth waited, divided but fascinated, on the edge of something vast. The warden had delivered its message, and now it stood silent again, its glow steady and unchanging, as though it were waiting for humanity to make the next move. The world held its breath as the warden finally revealed the full truth behind its presence on Earth. Speaking once more in its steady, emotionless voice, it explained that its true purpose was not to teach, nor to command, but to activate something hidden deep within the planet itself, something ancient, buried long before. Humans had even learned to walk. Beneath Earth's crust, sealed beneath layers of rock and forgotten time, lay the Great Gate, a massive alien structure designed by the Astrari to remain hidden until a sentient species reached a specific point in its development. According to the warden, this gate was built around powerful quantum space-time anchors, mechanisms capable of folding distance, shifting gravity, and opening paths to places no human had ever imagined. But such a structure came with risks. To prevent misuse or accidental activation, it was guarded by complex fail-safe systems, dormant, silent, and immune to time, that would only unlock when the world above reached the level of intelligence. And technology needed to understand and protect what lay beyond. Now, humanity had crossed that threshold, and the warden had awoken not just to deliver a message, but to begin the final phase of its task. Reactions across the planet were swift and divided. Some hailed it as proof that humanity was finally ready to take its place among the stars. Others saw it as a warning, that Earth was now part of something too vast and too dangerous to control. As these debates grew louder, something astonishing happened. Satellite imagery over the Arctic detected a sudden change. Thick clouds of sparkling nanite particles began to rise from the sphere, which had since been moved to a controlled spaceport in orbit, and drifted silently toward Earth's northern pole. There, on a frozen stretch of land untouched by human hands, the nanites began to build. Towering crystals of translucent metal grew from the ice, rising in perfect geometric patterns that changed with the light. Within hours, a structure hundreds of meters tall stood where there had been only snow and silence. The warden, still, hovering above Earth, declared the tower to be a relay, a conductor that would awaken the systems hidden beneath the crust. The world was stunned. Despite all their machines and knowledge, humanity had never discovered what lay under the Arctic. Now they were watching it being unlocked by a visitor from a forgotten age. Panic began to spread. Protesters demanded the tower be destroyed before it could open something dangerous. Military commanders debated whether to strike with missiles before it was too late. Scientists urged patience, warning that attacking the structure could trigger defenses no one understood. Maya Leclerc, now under global attention, spoke publicly for the first time, saying she believed the warden wasn't forcing anything. It was offering a path, but only if humanity chose it. Her words added a human face to the debate, and though still just a child, her voice reached millions. Meanwhile, drones sent to scan the base of the Crystal Tower were returned fried and unreadable, hinting at protective fields or technologies far beyond current understanding. Earth stood at a crossroads, facing a choice it had never imagined. Trust a machine built by beings who no longer existed and open a gateway into the unknown, or destroy it and possibly lose a gift meant for them since the beginning. The warden gave no warnings, no threats, only silence and a single message repeated every hour. The path is ready, the decision is yours. And across the stars, somewhere far beyond the edge of human sight, something stirred in response, as if it too was waiting for Earth to decide. When the Great Gate finally activated, it did not open with light or sound or a burst of cosmic power. Instead, the world around it seemed to freeze and then shift. The warden, now glowing brighter than ever, announced in its calm voice that this was not yet the full unlocking, but the beginning of a trial. A test meant not to judge individuals, but the soul of an entire species. Humanity, it said, must prove it was ready not by strength or science alone, but by showing the traits the Astrari valued above all: resilience, creativity, and compassion. The test would be a simulation, but not a simple illusion. It would feel real, and the cost of failure would carry consequences beyond the simulation itself. A select group was chosen, 30 individuals from across the Earth, handpicked by the warden's unknown criteria. Among them were scientists with brilliant minds, soldiers trained for any threat, historians who understood the weight of forgotten knowledge, and, to the world's surprise, Maya Leclerc, now 13, still somehow linked to the artifact in a way no one could explain. The team was brought to the base of the Arctic Tower, where the ground opened and drew them inside. In a flash of white light, they found themselves no longer on Earth, but inside vast environments crafted from memory and data, simulated worlds drawn from the past crises of vanished civilizations. One world was in chaos, its skies red with fire as 2 moons cracked above. Another was frozen in silence, its people turned to statues by a disease with no cure. The chosen humans had no weapons but their minds, no tools but each other. At first, confusion reigned. Some tried to take control, others panicked. There were arguments, mistakes, and fear. But as the days passed inside the simulation, though time outside moved differently, they began to adapt. The soldiers learned to lead without force. The scientists solved problems by combining knowledge in ways never tried before. The historians remembered forgotten truths that offered guidance. And Maya, though the youngest, often saw what others missed: emotions, patterns, moments of peace in chaos. They saved simulated cities from collapse, healed dying alien species using nothing but instinct and empathy, and rebuilt hope in places where even the Astrari had once failed. Yet the test was not easy. In one challenge, a disagreement nearly tore the group apart, with lives on the line. In another, they faced the temptation to sacrifice part of their team to save themselves. Each trial revealed more than just ability. It showed the heart of those tested. They failed some tests, succeeded in others, but every time they rose, again, different, wiser, stronger. Through their journey, the team discovered that the simulation was not just a test. It was also a history, a hidden record of the rise and fall of dozens of civilizations, all of whom had faced similar trials. Most had failed. Few had passed. The Astrari, it seemed, had once been caretakers of peace, and now searched for successors who would continue their forgotten work. As the final simulation ended, the group stood together on a silent world beneath. Twin suns, the last test complete. The warden's voice returned, not with judgment, but with quiet approval. Humanity has chosen hope over fear, unity over pride, it said. You are not perfect, but you rise. The simulation faded, and the team awoke in the Arctic Tower, unchanged yet transformed. The Great Gate, now fully active, began to shift, unlocking its deepest systems. The legacy was no longer sealed. Humanity had passed the trial, not by force, but by becoming more than they were when they began. And across Earth, people looked to the sky not with fear, but with wonder, as a new chapter was about to begin. As the final echoes of the simulation faded, and the chosen team slowly returned to the real world, the structure around them began to transform. Walls that had seemed solid now rippled like water, lights dimmed, and the humming beneath their feet grew louder, deeper, more alive. The warden, now brighter and more vivid than ever before, hovered above them, no longer just a floating artifact, but something fully awakened. With the trial complete, it spoke once more, this time not with test instructions or warnings, but with a voice filled with solemn purpose. It revealed the truth that had remained hidden for ages. The sphere was never meant to be understood as a relic or even a guardian. It was a key, designed by the Astrari not just to test, but to unlock. And what it would now open was called the Astrari Vault, a secret that had been buried beneath Earth since before the first sparks of human life, protected across eons by systems too advanced to detect. Slowly, the Arctic Tower began to pulse, with light, and the icy ground shook gently as hidden doors opened beneath it. From the heart of the Earth, rising on a silent platform of light, came the vault itself, an enormous crystal structure, spherical in shape, suspended in the air without any visible support. Its surface shimmered like a living galaxy, and within, it danced patterns of memory, knowledge, and energy. The warden, now floating at the vault's side, turned toward the humans and lowered itself slightly, in a movement that resembled a bow. Then it spoke words none would ever forget. You are the last flame of sentience in a darkening galaxy. Carry it forward. The meaning of those words struck everyone in the room with quiet force. The Astrari, a billion-year-old civilization that once stretched across thousands of stars, had long vanished. The vault was their final gift, not just to preserve their past, but to pass it on. Earth, once thought to be a young and isolated world, had now been chosen not because of its power, but because of its spirit, its refusal to give up, its ability to adapt, and its compassion even in moments of fear. As the vault opened, beams of data, golden glowing threads, stretched out into the air, scanning Earth's networks and gently linking themselves to global systems. But the vault was more than just a library. It was a map, and that map showed something extraordinary. Across the galaxy, hidden in forgotten systems and shadowed worlds, other gates existed, just like Earth's. Some were dark, some were faintly active. All were waiting. Humanity now had access not only to the knowledge of a long-lost empire, but to the ancient network the Astrari had built to travel between the stars. This was the moment the world changed. The people of Earth, once explorers of space with cautious steps, had now been handed the keys to something far greater, a path to distant worlds, ancient knowledge, and perhaps even lost allies. Scientists stared in awe as schematics, starry, charts, and technologies beyond their wildest dreams appeared in front of them. Historians wept as entire epochs of lost history were revealed. And those who had doubted, those who feared the Warden, now watched in silence, unable to deny the truth that had unfolded before them. Maya, standing at the heart of it all, felt the weight of this gift, but also its responsibility. They were no longer just humans from one blue planet. They were now caretakers of something vast, guardians of a legacy that stretched back to the beginning of the stars. The vault pulsed gently, alive with possibilities, and far beyond Earth, signals began to move again, waking other systems, lighting up paths long forgotten. The stars, once silent, were listening again, and Earth, once alone, was now part of something far greater. Years passed, and Earth was no longer the same. The world that had once feared the black sphere and argued over its meaning had now become the heart of something far larger than anyone had imagined. The vault, still pulsing gently beneath the Arctic Tower, continued to share its endless stream of knowledge. Ancient science, forgotten star maps, blueprints of healing technologies, and echoes of 1,000 civilizations that once touched the stars. Humanity had not only survived the trial, they had embraced the legacy given to them, using it not for control or conquest, but for connection. Through the reactivated Astrari Gate network, Earth's ships traveled across systems once thought unreachable, stepping into old ruins, lost worlds, and meeting life that had hidden or fallen silent across the ages. Some species were the scattered remnants of once great empires. Others had only begun to evolve when the Astrari vanished. But now, guided by human diplomacy, respect, and the steady wisdom of the Warden, alliances began to form. These weren't empires built on war. They were partnerships built on shared stories, common hopes, and the understanding that sentience, in all its forms, deserved a future. Maya Leclerc, now a young woman, stood at the center of this new age. From a curious girl who had once touched a forgotten artifact in a museum, she had become a diplomat of Earth, one of the youngest to walk through the ancient gates and return with peace instead of fear. She spoke for her people not with pride, but with purpose, reminding every world she visited that the vault was not a throne, but a library. Her journeys took her to broken space stations drifting between twin suns, to green planets where time seemed slower, and to places where no words had been spoken for centuries. And in every place, she carried Earth's message. That survival was not about strength, but about unity, empathy, and the courage to learn. Back on Earth, the Warden remained, now no longer a mystery, but a guardian and advisor, sharing pieces of Astrari memory to help guide humanity's steps. It stood as a reminder that even the smallest spark, one artifact, one choice, one child, could light a fire that changed the stars. The vault had become Earth's symbol of peace, and its story was taught in every language, across every continent, and broadcast beyond the solar system to any who would listen. Humans were no longer just a species growing toward the stars. They were now known as the carriers, the ones who held and passed on the fire of knowledge that others had lost. Yet, beyond the lights of thriving systems and newly lit gates, in places still dark and cold, something stirred. In the silence between galaxies, ancient watchers, machines or minds, none could say, shifted from their endless slumber. They felt the echoes of the vault awakening, the signal of the Warden active again, and the familiar pattern of life rising once more from the shadows. They had seen many civilizations rise and fall, all chasing greatness, all forgetting the weight of wisdom. But this time, the whispers among them were different. In their ancient language, the watchers shared a message, soft and distant like a breath in the void. Humanity rose when all others fell. And so, the stars, once scattered with forgotten stories, now had a new voice among them. Earth, the blue world once thought small and alone, had become a bridge between the past and the future. And the relic, once left, in dust and silence, had become the cornerstone of a new age, not just for humans, but for all who still dreamed beyond their skies.